Hello, netizens. Welcome back to another session with me. Today, we'll be going through a very crucial topic that is the after effect of coronavirus, and which is being predicted that is going to be another big pandemic after this coronavirus or alongside the coronavirus. This is the world hunger pandemic. Threat of an impending hunger pandemic globally. In this video, we are going to look into the threat of an impending famine or a hunger pandemic globally post COVID-19. What is a famine or a hunger pandemic? What are its effects globally? What are the statistics? Is the world hunger pandemic avoidable? Is the world hunger pandemic controllable? All of these and many more questions will be reviewed over the next few minutes. This is the next global crisis that is going to hit the economically backward, underdeveloped, and developing countries worldwide. Scarcity of food is going to be a major concern if the world doesn't come together to fight this hunger pandemic alongside the worst global health pandemic in the form of the novel coronavirus, which is still not showing any signs of decrease globally. Let's go along and check what is the current situation and where will it lead to. A famine or a hunger pandemic is the extreme and widespread scarcity of food, either regionally or globally, caused due to many factors, including war, inflation, agricultural failure, population explosion, government policies, or a health pandemic. This is followed by severe malnutrition, starvation, and increased mortality. A week ago, the World Food Programme chief, David Beasley, warned about an impending hunger pandemic or a famine of biblical proportions. He stated that in his conversations with leaders over the past many months, before the coronavirus even became an issue, he warned that in 2020 we would be facing the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II for a variety of reasons, such as the war in Syria and Yemen, the deepening crisis in places like South Sudan, the desert locust swarms in Africa, more frequent natural disasters, and changing weather patterns that we are experiencing. The economic crisis in Lebanon, which is impacting millions of Syrian refugees, and the list goes on. We were already facing a perfect storm, and in the present time with COVID-19, he is stressing that we are not only facing a global health pandemic but also a humanitarian catastrophe in the form of hunger pandemic. Millions of civilians living in conflict-scarred nations, including many women and children, face being pushed to the brink of starvation, with the specter of famine a very real and dangerous possibility. This might sound truly shocking, but there are 821 million people that go to bed chronically hungry every night all over the world. According to the latest food report on food crisis published, there are an additional 135 million people facing crisis levels of hunger or worse, which means an additional 135 million people are heading toward the brink of starvation. In addition to the above, the World Food Programme analysis also shows, due to the coronavirus, that another 130 million people could be pushed to the brink of starvation by the end of 2020, which is a devastating total of 265 million people globally by the end of 2020. On any given day currently, the World Food Programme offers a lifeline to about 100 million people, up from about 80 million people just 2 years ago. This includes about 30 million people who literally depend on the WFP to stay alive. If World Food Program cannot reach these people with the life-saving assistance they need, the analysis shows that 300,000 people could starve to death every single day over a 3-month period. These numbers do not include the increase of starvation due to COVID-19. In a worst case scenario, we could be looking at famine or a hunger pandemic in about 36 countries. And in fact, in 10 of these countries, there are already 1 million people per country who are all on the verge of starvation. And in many places, human suffering pays a heavy price of conflict. Looking at a strategy for protection, the first part needs to protect conflict-driven countries from a hunger pandemic or famine caused by the novel coronavirus or COVID-19. There is also a real danger that more people could potentially die from the economic impact of COVID-19 than from the virus itself. It is critical that the whole world comes together as one united global community to defeat this disease and protect the most vulnerable nations and communities from its potentially devastating effects. Lockdowns followed by economic recessions are expected to lead a major loss of income among the working poor. Overseas remittances will also drop sharply. This would hurt countries that depend on it. The collapsing oil prices will have an impact significantly. Also, when donor countries' revenues are down, it will have a significant impact on foreign aid. The economic and health effects of COVID-19 are worst for communities in countries across Africa as well as the Middle East, because the virus threatens further damage to the lives and the livelihoods of people already put at risk by conflict. Children especially are vulnerable to hunger and malnutrition, so the WFP is prioritizing assistance to them. Currently, as is known, 1.6 billion children and young people are out of school around the world due to the lockdown. Nearly 370 million children of these children are missing out on nutritious school meals. One can only imagine when children don't get the nutrition, which means their immunity systems are down, and this is why the WFP is providing nutritious school meals where it possibly can. If there isn't sufficient investment and sufficient resources devoted to addressing the hunger dimensions of the COVID pandemic, then there could be a widespread deaths across months just because of the famine, as stated earlier. The World Food Program chief even urged member countries of the UN to pool in at least $2 billion aid to fight the lingering health crisis. The World Food Program chief economist Arif Hussain said the scenario in poor countries is very difficult to comprehend. The situation, he said, was compounded by the chance of a second or third outbreak. More than 3.6 million cases of novel coronavirus have been confirmed globally to date. The impact of climate change also has to play a major role with this impending famine. It is to be noted that in the last 5 years, there has not been a normal rainy season globally. In the countries that majorly depend on agriculture as their primary source of food and income, the farmers have been struggling to have a good single crop a year due to untimely rains. This is one category of people that are suffering with scarcity. Now, with the lockdowns and other limitations, we have tens of millions of people living in the urban areas who traditionally live hand to mouth in the informal sector and who are now suddenly destitute. In the US too, fears are rising about fresh meat supply. A growing number of slaughterhouses and meat producing plants are closing and slowing down due to the outbreak among workers. This is pushing up prices for hogs and beef in grocery stores where supplies are tight. To summarize it all, coronavirus in the present time is being deemed as the major cause of famine or hunger pandemic of biblical proportions. Coronavirus could double the number of people who go hungry globally. There is an urgency for all the world leaders to act wisely, and all countries involved in conflicts must allow unimpeded humanitarian access, and supply chains must be moving to get food from where it is produced to where it is needed. A group of almost 50 governments pledged to ease trade and keep food supply chains orderly. The UN is trying to stockpile food and cash for priority nations. The group says that export bans aimed at protecting domestic food production could lead to soaring prices and shortages. The pandemic may also cause some nations to boost their agricultural produce. However, it will only depend on a collective solution to fight this famine or hunger pandemic when it looks straight into the eyes of the underprivileged countries and its citizens globally. All humanitarian work, despite conflicts, should not be halted, and aid should reach those in need on time before it is too late to even know what took the world by storm. We take this opportunity to pray for all those underprivileged to be provided with basic necessities and food so that they don't cease to exist because of hunger. This is a global initiative and should be fought setting aside personal, political, regional, religious differences to make this world a better place to live. That's it from me. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Also, please click the bell icon to get updates on my new videos. Please do not forget to comment and share your feedback. Thank you.